Meet Jho Low. At just 28 years old, he managed to steal 4.4 billion US dollars in straight cash from the Malaysian government, making him have more spending power than any individual on earth. In today's video, we'll be going through how an average teenager from an average town went on to become an international playboy, rubbing shoulders with the elites, and eventually deemed an international fugitive, all of this before the age of 35. Joe was born into a relatively rich family. His father was a millionaire in Malaysia from the construction industry, so his wealth was not that of levels of kings and queens, but good enough to send him to international schools in England and the US. And this meant that Joe spent a lot of time with wealthy kids, kids ranging from Middle Eastern royalty, old money trust fund babies, and kids that threw massive Sweet 16 parties. Joe was very sociable and made friends in high places. He went to Harrow, a prestigious high school in England that was established in 1572, and then he would go on to study business at Wharton University. When he graduated from Wharton at just age 21, most of his colleagues would go on to work for major institutions on Wall Street like Goldman Sachs or Vanguard. But Joe chose something different. He chose a different path. Joe decided to open up his first company, Winnerton Group, which was short for Win a Ton of Money Group. His company was basically a hedge fund and would invest on behalf of his clients. But Joe felt like the amount of money he was managing was too little. He was inspired by the Saudi Arabian Sovereign Wealth Fund. At the time in 2008, the Saudi fund had $700 billion to invest. Jho Low thought it would be great if Malaysia had its own sovereign wealth fund, but in order to do that, he needed a connection in the government, and luckily for him, he did. When Jho Low was studying in England at Harrow, he became best mates with a guy called Riza Aziz, who was the stepson of the deputy president or deputy prime minister, Najib Razak. Najib had ambitions to become prime minister of Malaysia, and Jho Low supplied him with funding and networking, which saw him win the 2009 election. Once Najib assumed office, Jho Low pitched his idea about starting a sovereign wealth fund just like the Saudis, and of course Najib gave the go-ahead, and the Malaysian Sovereign Wealth Fund was created and named 1MDB, which stands for One Malaysia Development Bank. Initially, the fund was injected with 1 billion US dollars from local banks. The deal was that Jho Low would be the trustee and allocate funds for prosperity of the everyday citizen, but obviously that didn't happen. On paper, the deal was for Joe to invest the 1 billion into Saudi Arabia Co. and leave it parked there, but he implemented an elaborate scheme to siphon off the money. With the 1 billion, Jho Low struck a deal with fake Saudi princes to invest Malaysia's money into Saudi Arabia Co., the petrochemical producer. He sent $300 million to the Saudis and placed $700 million into a Swiss bank account that he owned. With the $700 million, he paid Najib $100 million and kept the rest for himself. Jho Low finally felt like he had made it. With $600 million reflecting in his bank account, he felt like he could do anything. He obviously paid off some officials in 1MDB, but he definitely felt like he did it. He bought houses in the Hamptons, all over Europe, got a private jet for $10 million. Jeez, man, he was just living it up. But it didn't take long until he wanted more. Greed had overtaken him. With the first 1 billion secured from banks in Malaysia, Jho Low gained the confidence to seek out further investment into 1MDB. So he went to the most fraudulent place on earth, America, to secure funding from major Wall Street institutions and got the green light from Goldman Sachs. You see, Jho Low was friends with the former Goldman Sachs Southeast Asia chairman, Tim Leisner, and they met each other back at Wharton. Tim Leisner was in on the con from the word go, and he aided Jho Low with raising capital for 1MDB. Since Goldman Sachs was a bank, they issued bonds on behalf of 1MDB for clients to invest in. Institutions like hedge funds, insurance companies, and retirement schemes invested heavily into these bonds, and that's how 1MDB got to $4.4 billion. Bear in mind, the $4.4 billion invested wasn't valued in stocks, mutual funds, or Bitcoin. It was straight up cash. By 2014, Jho Low was the most liquid person on the planet, and he definitely showed it. On one occasion, Jho Low decided he wanted to see New Year's twice, so he filled his private jet with friends, flew to Sydney, celebrated, and then flew back to Los Angeles just to do it all over again. He started attending state dinners and award ceremonies with the most famous people on earth. He even sponsored the creation of Wolf of Wall Street. For real, look it up. He has pictures of him with Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese. Nothing could stop Joe Low. He was a billionaire and had the backing of the Prime Minister. It was a dream come true for any con man. But with every heist, there's always a paper trail. Government officials in Malaysia started asking questions about the returns on investment for 1 MDB. The story of theft really broke out in 2015, and Najib was ousted by his political party and even tried to flee the country before he was arrested at the airport. Najib claimed that he was just going to play golf in another country, but further investigation showed that he was false and tens of millions of cash was found in his house. Najib, his wife, and various associates were charged with multiple crimes, including money laundering and defeating the ends of justice. Najib, of course, denied any wrongdoing and said that the Wall Street Journal, which broke out the story, were liars and were used by his political enemies to smear his name. Najib was however convicted for his crimes and was found guilty by a high court in 2020 of criminal breach of trust, abuse of power, and money laundering for illegally receiving about 100 million from Jho Low. Najib's total sentence in 2020 was set for 12 years imprisonment, but is currently appealing the process and looking for a presidential pardon. A Malaysian court on the 14th of March 2020 dismissed money laundering charges against Jho Low's friend Riza Aziz under an agreement in which he returned 107 million US dollars worth of assets. As for Jho Low, he fled America in 2015 when the story initially made headlines. He was eventually spotted in Macau, China in 2020, but has not faced any criminal court. The USA, Malaysia, and Kuwait have all convicted Jho Low in absentia for his crimes, and an Interpol red notice has been issued. The Chinese government, however, denies that Jho Low is in the country, and it appears that Jho Low has gotten away with everything. A recent article shows that Jho Low has come into a confidential agreement with the United States. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think of the story? And please don't forget to like and subscribe, comment, and thank you all again for watching.